You're listening to FFOP Radio.
Reach the
Welcome to the show. My name is Dave, and this is Everything Everywhere, the show where yada, 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 yada. So let's get right into it. You have read the title. It's been hyped up for a while. After so much time has passed, he is back on the show, and he's brought a guest. So let's introduce the man, the myth, the legend first. We got Gavin Mccullough from the Arizona Museum of Natural History. Welcome, Gavin.
Thank you very much, and I also like to point out that you fed us. So thank you very much for feeding us and caffeinating us.
Full disclosure, I've fed and watered both of the guests, so I can all the chores done in the studio. Also, sitting next to him, Benji, I realize I never said your last name aloud, so can you say it so that I don't have to?
Yes, my name is Benji Paisno.
There we go, Paisno.
Yeah.
The one time I introduced you, I did not want to do it wrong, so maybe do it yourself.
It works.
Of course, Chris is over here on the show also.
I'm here.
So, let's get right into it. First of all, we all know Gavin. He's the paleontologist. He's come to talk about dinosaurs. But Benji, brand new to the show, is what is your job title exactly? What would you call yourself?
So, I am a paleo artist.
Paleo art. That's what I was going to call you, but I didn't know if you had like a special title at the museum. So, yeah, a paleo artist. And now, how long have you been working at the museum?
I've been with the museum since 2015.
Okay.
So I started as a student when I was in school. I said one day, I was like, cool, I can just call him and ask. So I called Dr. Bob.
Right.
And he said, sure, come. So I came with a resume, came with, dressed very nicely, all this. And he said, no, you're a volunteer here. And so I started volunteering with you guys. And then I was introduced several months later to the exhibitions department. Okay. And started working with them. So I volunteered with them for 3 years. Started working at the museum after college in 2018. Okay. And then as of March this year, I'm an official employee.
Yay.
Nice.
Yeah, so, I forget that it's that new that you've been official.
Maybe
it's only
that's
been
barely 6 months now, yeah.
Yeah, it does feel like you, because I've been involved with the museum for my entire life, and it feels like you have just popped into my consciousness recently. So the fact that you've only been, official for 6 months, now I don't feel kind of so bad for not ignoring you and not catching
I hide
up.
in the back room. No one ever sees me. So.
Right. All the people behind the scenes, though, is, they're people got to go out and get the fossils, whatever. But if we want to see them rendered in lifelike depiction, we need people like you. So tell us what was your first piece in the museum that you did?
The first piece I did was for the Dinosaur PlayStation. It now is on the mountain in our Triassic Pond area. It's the little Coelophysis that's looking down into the pond.
Yeah.
So that's the very first thing I did for the museum. His name is Ricky.
Okay, I was going to ask, because he's been a character in my life for a long time, too. Because did he recently move or no?
I moved him, I think, coming up on a year ago now. I moved him right before we reopened to the public, so.
Yeah, with all the shutdowns and reopenings and all the sneak peeks we got, everything, I don't know what this like in there.
We don't
anymore,
either. We work there. Excited. It's hard to keep track of.
It's very cool just to see like the stuff updating on Facebook or whatever. I've been following your horsetail saga on Twitter.
Oh, they're an adventure.
But okay, so let's just crack it open because, like for an average project, let's just call the horsetail ones like an easy go-to. What do you start with that? Was it just like a full blown from your head, or did you start with like a pipe and you spray painted it, or like what's your process?
So these ones are fun. We used to have 11 of them down on the mountain. So Gavin, you said you and Dr. Sterling made those original ones.
They're 20 years
Those
ago.
were, they're about the same age as me. So they were getting refreshed along with the 27 new ones I built. I just followed those. They're PVC pipe with Bondo. So the same thing you do with car. Yeah, so put them on a big roll. Rolled out the Bondo, did all the striping, put in the striations, and then I've been painting them up. So it's things like that. I was like, okay, we've already done this. I know how to do this. A lot of times it's just kind of make things how you can. So I learned how to weld through the museum. I learned a lot of woodworking, and a lot of the artsy stuff I already knew, but I've been able to refine those skills as I'm working with this. So a lot of things are just steel welded together in the same ways that other people do armatures. So everyone does the same stuff, just a little differently.
Yeah, with art you have to, though, because you're never going to find a template for a Pteranodon or a Mosasaur or whatever you're going to be projecting into real life. You could go off of somebody else's work, but by and large, especially when you're at a museum that has like specimens like we do, you're probably going to base them off the ones you have instead of somebody else's junk, right?
Yeah, so that little Coelophysis is actually based off of... So down in our Triassic Hall, down on the ramp, there's that Coelophysis up. He's a ghost ranch specimen, right? Mm-hmm. Is it the type specimen?
I don't think so. I don't know.
It's one. I actually went down there with a ruler and I measured all the bones off of that. Wow. So our little Coelophysis model is that one there.
Wow.
Whenever we have the ability to, I will take from actual fossil material we have. Otherwise, I have to find these materials and measurements online through other people I know, resources. So in that way, with this type of art, there is sort of a template of I'm working from life, from nature. Yeah, but as we move forward and we design and we do things, I try very hard not to reference other people's work too much, because then, it's no longer a piece of work I've done. It's just a copy.
Mm. It's a fine line you have to walk, because
very fine.
Being an artist, you want to have the flourish, you want the personal flavor, but especially being a paleo artist, you've got to nail those details, or otherwise picky people like me are going to go, I don't think that, Mm-hmm. It's not an enviable position by any means, because you get nerds like me who want to pick everything apart.
Can I interject something?
Of course.
Another thing that Benji has to deal with regarding a lot of the material from the Fort Crittenden Formation that's in the 75 million exhibit is that we don't have a lot of things for him to go measure, because a lot of that stuff is so fragmentary that we pretty much are just, okay, we know it's a Tyrannosaur.
Right.
And Benji was given, make a Tyrannosaur. It can't be T-Rex. It also can't really be any of these other Campanian Tyrannosaurs that we know that existed. So it's got to be a Tyrannosaur, but nothing different. That we know of. So it's got to be kind of a mix, but also it's got to be... So... that was pretty amazing, Benji, that you pulled that
behind baseball.
Fake. Yeah.
Like, what is... So, like, the specimen that the new big T-Rex type animal is based on, like, how much of that do we actually have, like, to look at and say, well, it's definitely not XYZ?
We just have teeth.
All we have that we know of at this moment, I would say that we're prepared to definitely identify as Tyrannosaur is tooth material.
Really?
And Tyrannosaur teeth are pretty diagnostic. You can say that's Tyrannosaur.
For sure.
But you can't... We don't have the parts that would say which one it is. We don't have enough. And at least that we know of yet. Now, there's still fossils to be prepped out that we still haven't maybe cleaned off all the way or put together all the way. Maybe those details will be revealed when we get that work done. But... for now, all we know is, okay, that's Tyrannosaur. Because it's a fat tooth.
With like a banana shape, right?
Overall, they're kind of... the later, bigger ones especially have those kind of big banana shape. And these are enough to kind of be... They're thick. So...
Are they serrated?
They're serrated,
okay, yeah. So we're definitely looking at a big meat-eating animal.
Yeah.
So,
the teeth in that model actually are based off of those teeth we have. The ones that they scale to are actually based in there. So the teeth in his mouth are the same, quote unquote, as the fossils we have.
Interesting.
Okay, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my own little nitpick, but I got to bring it up. So the coloration of dinosaurs, right? So for the longest time, that T-Rex at the museum was based off of like a blue buzzard type, because you say, oh, well, it's going to be like, modern analog. Still doesn't sit right with me. I don't know. Blue Tyrannosaurus doesn't feel right.
No one's figured out yet what I've actually painted him after.
I'm interested to see.
Yes. It's very obvious. So why he's blue is I have a habit of doing lots of browns and greens. And I said, I haven't used blue yet. So he's actually blue just because I was like, I haven't done a blue dinosaur yet.
For sure.
But I took reference from animals that have blue on them. So I looked at a lot of native fauna. You know, we have those tree lizards, the spiny lizards, road runners. All those animals tend to display those colors on their face and in their neck region. I took all his colors from a cassowary.
Right.
The standard blue, everyone does a big theropod cassowary.
Right.
But I applied them in the places where you would see it. So all of his keratin features are that same sort of greenish, yellowish keratin color. The blues are the same display color blues, but where a large animal like this would possibly display those colors. The back modeling is actually from tree branches. So when you get up, and I actually did this, I cast some of our tree branches over him into the light, the body disappears. So as bright and vibrant, as weird as his weird striping is, it actually is functional camouflage, which is really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, it just ended up looking like a collared lizard.
That's one of those things that, you know, nerds like me would be like, nah, I don't think so. But you never know. We'll never know because the color is long gone.
Yeah.
And guess what amazing, wild inspiration Benji used for the Hadrosaur?
Oh, if it's orange, or if it was like, memory serves, it was like a yellowish orange.
She's very orange.
The first thing that comes to mind is a canary, but that's probably not right.
It was not an animal.
Not an animal.
Nope. So she's actually the first one I designed for that room and the last one I built.
Okay.
So I designed her back in early 2018, almost 2017.
Oh, wow.
When we had just started talking about building this project. So her concept work goes back very far. She's painted after a pumpkin spice latte.
Okay, yeah.
I think we could totally be best friends now.
Yep, I am everything pumpkin, so I straight up was like pumpkin spice dinosaur.
I'll never complain when anything gets the color orange affixed to it.
Yes.
I'm not a huge fan of pumpkin spice, but whatever. Orange is my thing. so I'm totally
I
fine.
just noticed that your sound tiles, you've got Halloween.
Yeah, it's very thematic in here. What is the theme? I don't know, but it might have one. So, so how long is this? So you're saying back in 2017, essentially, was when the new project got started.
That's back when we started the physical space.
Right.
I believe from the earliest paperwork I saw, the initial plans for this gallery dates back to 2014.
Wow.
That's about right.
You know, it feels like, from a child till now, I feel like it's been nothing but a whirlwind of change in that museum. But when you sit down and actually look at the time frame and the bureaucracy, I'm sure that has to go through and all the filters, like, woof, 2014, and it's barely done this year.
Yep.
Wow.
And it's also potentially updatable. So so there's still space for new things as things wear out, as we get new information. It's potentially updatable. So that's a pretty cool feature too.
As happy as I am to put things up on the wall, I'm just as happy to take them off and put something better.
Right. Because you want the scientific, the reflection of the newest data.
The Hadrosaur has the hooves.
Right.
That everybody loves now. That was released to the public as I had finished this sculpture. But I had been working with Dr. Andrew Farkey, who Gavin got me in contact with.
Farkey's
and
a
I
great
said,
guy.
Gryposaurus is like a sister taxa to the Edmontosaurus, where this mummy came from. Would there be a similar structure? And he said, there's no reason not to.
Right.
So I ended up actually going and cutting her hands off and just doing a full new hand on this animal. So, willing to change, like if we figure out what this big blue Tyrannosaur is, I'm happy to go cut that head off and just put a new one on there, And so as we learn more, as we understand more, it's important for us as a facility to put that new information out. And so we're happy to do it.
And we're happy to have exhibits people like Benji who are okay with doing that, because sometimes, especially, your work is really great, but it's great that you're not necessarily precious about it, because you're right. Like if we do something and then Benji's like, I'll take it down, I'll tear it off, I'll put a new thing on, I'll update it.
Science that's maybe the artistry side of it. The artist is maybe a little less inclined to get dogmatic about their work than a scientist will necessarily.
Wrong.
No,
Very wrong.
In my personal experience,
Yeah.
like the artists that I know are totally fine being like, all right, we'll do it over. But the science-minded people are like negative. I already learned this and I'm not doing it again. So, but everybody's different. So it's interesting that you sort of skirted that dogma where you're like, no, it's so good. It's so right. It's so.
Yeah, there's the interesting part about being a science artist is you have to play in both worlds, It is as much a piece of art for public enjoyment as it is a teaching and learning tool.
Sure.
I always tell people not everyone can read a paper, but everyone can look at a dinosaur. And, I spent about 2.5 months doing research, reading scientific papers, reaching out to people, working with Bob and Gavin, doing all this to put together a complete picture of what this is, doing actual legitimate research.
Right.
But all people see is this finished piece. And so, but they don't understand that this is 20 plus years of research into tyrannosaurs that's been compiled into one image, essentially. And so I appreciate so much that they've put art into STEM. So it's STEAM now, because without that artistic communication, you tend to fall apart in science communication.
Well, if you think about it, what is science without the ability to be creative? If you have not the burden to see something that does not exist, what is science? So whatever. Yeah, I totally get that. Like it just seems like a layup, obviously.
Yeah, but not everybody believes that. Some
for
people
sure.
think science is separated from some creativity, but it's definitely, at least in paleontology, a creative endeavor. You've got to. I think it is probably in every discipline because of that. You want to find out more. How do I go about finding out more?
Right, because people think of. They say, well, I'm not creative. Bullshit. Everybody is. Creativity just means you have the ability to create something. Whether you're a scientist, a mom, a dad, an actual artist, a yada, yada, yada. So the fact that there are people out there who say, no, science and art, not a thing. They don't stay in the same room. But you're looking past so many fundamentals. Like you have to, especially working with anything dead, which is almost all science. You have to recreate it. And if you're going to recreate it, you're going to need art to do that.
Yeah.
We don't have the teleporter. Well, the replicator.
We're working on that. Yeah. But it'll be a little while.
Please.
I had heard a good example of that. I can't remember who told me this. One of my professors, but it's, I guess now kind of everybody knows about it. Back when NASA was really kind of getting started, getting off the ground, I think it was one of the first Mariner missions. It was one of the first Mars missions where they were just sending something to go around Mars, not to land, but just to check it out. So like in the mid 60s. And they were like, okay, we're filling this thing with instruments. And someone said, is it going to take pictures? And they're like, no, we don't need photographs. We're doing all this other stuff. And somebody in NASA said, we are taxpayer funded. If there's not something for people to look at,
right,
nobody's going to care. And there was like, well, but it's not science. We got all these other things we can do that nobody will care about. I mean, they'll look at the pictures and then you can explain it to them, because then they'll say, you got to awe them. You got to catch them. Your money got spent to take a thing to another planet. So someone realized you have to have the thing to catch the public's interest.
And it's really big, especially in all sciences too. I know a big part of publication, when you're putting your paper out there, whether it's a news outlet, whether it's a scientific journal, anything like that, one of your first steps of publication is finding artwork to accompany it.
For sure.
And it's for that reason of...
Come on.
I love the science. I'm more than happy to read a 45-page paper, but it has to have a cool picture to make me know what it is first.
Right.
You want to be drawn in, And so... it's so important now that those two are integral together, and there's a lot of pressure on that to happen now, which is really cool. It's recognized that those two are in tandem.
Now, I'm not going to say that this has never happened, because the fact that I'm saying it is never happened probably means it has. But anyone who gets into anything, any science, any art, everybody has that story of like, when I knew I was going to be a paleontologist, a carpenter, whatever. It's never like the genesis of it isn't like I was looking over a sheet of figures and just fell in love with hard, boring scientific data. No, you were given 5 senses for a reason, and if you're not going to play to all of them, what's the point of having all of them? Like, to be so stupid as to stupid and smart to have the ability to throw something into space and bring it back, and then be like, Pictures, maybe? Nah.
Yeah.
What? But that's how you get new nerds into things.
Yeah.
Pictures of stuff or models or whatever. It's been a slow go because it's whenever you have any sort of tribe, the art and the science tribes, they're gonna fight each other. So it's nice to see that coming back because not for nothing. When I was a kid going to the museum, I felt like the artistry was there, but it felt very stale. Like the very slow animatronics that were just sort of based on that 60s idea that somehow survived to the 80s, but the body shape changed a little bit. And it's like, nah. Because there was no artist who had the art behind it. They go, well, no. If a scientist is in charge, they go, it wouldn't do that. They go, well, how would it move? I don't know, but not like that. An artist has to imagine something moving. It's so funny to me when a paleontologist or anybody comes with a scientific problem. They go, it simply could not have been.
Yeah.
What? How is that possible? You're looking at the evidence, like with Spinosaur. They say, well, we don't know how, or like with Apatosaur, or all the other big sauropods. They say they needed to be in water. Otherwise, how could they have? It just isn't possible. Like, it's so funny. We'll scratch our heads at physical evidence of things happening. But they weren't artists. They were scientists going, I don't know. I need to find something to figure it out. I don't need to create something, because that's part of what you're doing.
Yeah. And it's definitely different depending on who I talk to about things. So I have a circle of paleontologists I speak with, including our staff. And the answer a lot of time is, I don't know.
Right.
Or like, it could do that, maybe. We're not sure. Sometimes there's empirical evidence about like how they can move, like obviously they're not doing somersaults.
Right.
We know they can do these things. And then there's that creative aspect coming in of, I approach this art through my experience in biology. So I went through a whole science degree.
For sure.
And did all of that and stuff. So understanding it's like, you look at a giraffe, they have 7 vertebrae in their neck, looks pretty stiff. They can bend all the way and wrap around and lick the base of their neck. There's flexibility there. That does vary from animal to animal.
Sure.
But, it's taking those experiences, that life and that posing, and then applying it to this empirical evidence we have and using the two together to complete a picture. And there's definitely been, have you ever heard the dinosaur renaissance?
Yeah. Like basically the one that happened like in the 60s where everything blew up when they went from cold-blooded to hot-blooded, essentially.
Yeah, there was like early, mid-60s, and then again like late 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
And
like
then
a 20-year
again in the
boom
2010s has been considered another dinosaur renaissance. They follow Jurassic Park.
Basically. Yeah.
But no one anywhere nowadays is not into paleontology because of Jurassic Park. But so it's amazing how it generates that interest, though. But really, these new ideas, these trends and such tend to flow through this art. And, Robert Bacher was a big one pushing a lot of the warm-blooded, running around kind of things. And art tend to pick that up and depict a more agile, moving animal. You get into, they call them the awesome bro dinosaurs. Sharp teeth, no lips, real scaly monsters. And then now the big trend is, well, they're just animals.
Right.
And so you see so much beautiful paleo art that's just like, here's a T-Rex sitting there. Here's
with its mouth closed.
And
yes.
You never, right. You never
Here's a
think.
Stegosaurus looking at a puddle.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful work because coming through is a lot of these people are artists interested in the science. I tend to find paleo artists will argue with you more about the science, but because it's so ingrained in the work they're doing. It's so important to express this animal was a real thing and I want it to be as real as possible.
It's hard to get that across, though, because two things. One, deep time is a disconnect for literally everybody.
Yeah.
But number two, because these animals are shaped so differently from the ones we see today, we say they did not act like the way that animals do today. But animals today don't act like you think. Because on Twitter, there's the I followed an entire thread of just this phenomenon of bears sitting in their enclosures looking at clouds.
Yeah, watching the sunset.
Yeah,
I followed
just
that
because
thread, too. I love it.
exactly. It's just because they love to look at, like, they're people, animals. They're experiencing just like everybody else.
Yeah.
So why would dinosaurs be literally any different?
I watched a bear take a bath in a rose petal bath. It was fantastic.
Isn't it wild?
It turned the water off, got in the tub, and had a great time. And yeah, so animals will adapt to what's around them. And so obviously, I always hear the scariest things I've done are chicken nugget, the raptor, and the feathered ones.
Right.
Because now you're like, oh, that's a bird.
Okay.
And so, okay, that's a very big chicken. That's a sharp chicken. That chicken has teeth. It is very dangerous. But you recognize, you think of a goose.
Right.
You don't think friendly.
Right.
And when you think of that 40 feet tall as a therizinosaur, like a Dinochirus,
Right.
that's awfully frightening, a giant bird. But you look at something like a Triceratops, and kind of rhino-y or whatever,
Right,
but
it would
it's
be
this
like a giant
huge,
elephant,
dragon.
essentially. Yeah, kind of.
You look at a sauropod, you just imagining what this animal is just so difficult because there just isn't anything like that.
Right. And you have to grapple with such concepts. Because
Yes.
you say, okay, I can imagine a dog getting wild and going crazy and doing something funny. But you can't imagine 90 tons of reptile, like wanting to get rowdy or wanting to lay down or just look around
Or
and be
getting
fun.
up after it laid down.
Or
Yeah.
getting or just like tickling its nose with its own tail, which I'm sure happened. There were millions of years where anything could happen, and it all did. But we're all thinking about, what did they do most?
Yeah.
But they did
They stood
it
in
all.
front of volcanoes and they roared at each other.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, they fought and they would shout up to the sky every time
it
they
was
would
just Mad
lose
Max violence all year round.
But you have to think, it would be just like today. There'd be like little dinosaur bird equivalents and like the same bugs that we have, albeit scaled up, depending on the time period, maybe or maybe not flowering plants, etc. But it would all just be the same sort of patterns, albeit bigger and or scalier.
There's about 10 million species we know of today.
Which is,
Half of those are beetles.
yeah.
We know of a few thousand prehistoric animals. And just, it's so amazing to think of what we have seen and how much we just don't see and how much we're not going to see.
And how could you? Because
There's environments that don't get preserved in the fossil record.
the stipulations for fossilization are so incredibly specific.
Yes.
And
It's almost insulting.
yes,
It is. I am so annoyed by that, but it's
because you have to be that. Not only you have to make it through your entire life, not dying an idiot's death as a dinosaur, getting eaten, falling into something, getting stuck in mud, whatever the case may be, and then to make it all the way to whatever the end of whatever you were be, and to die where nobody else finds you, and then hurriedly get covered is insane.
but not
Yeah.
so fast that you get broken up by the current and knocked
Exactly.
around, and then you gotta.
But then, like, take that lightning in the bottle and then shrink it down and put it in another bottle with another bolt of lightning, and then you get dinosaur mummies. Because then you go, well, what the, like, there's so much.
Then you gotta survive maybe whatever the Earth is doing after that.
Yeah.
Then you get, anywhere between 60 and 67 million years of just crap happening.
Yeah.
And then to have something come along with the intelligence to look down and be like, oh, I know what that is. Like, one in a gazillion.
Yeah.
So the fact that we have anything to look at.
Not even just dinosaurs, things before them.
Oh, for sure.
We have fossils of like bryozoans or something from 3 billion years ago. That's amazing that something has just been untouched for that amount of time and somebody found it.
Yeah.
That you look at that and you can go, oh my goodness, this thing is like almost as old as the ground we walk on.
The Lego blocks of life.
Yeah.
You're looking at them. Mm-hmm. If you'd step on them, cause you the same amount of pain. But the fact that any of it gets to exist, like all the weird things that you get to experience, and the one thing that always blows my mind that I don't think anybody pays enough attention to is the KT barrier, where it's literally everywhere, and you'd be like, oh yeah, there's a little band all over the world of radioactive isotopes that's got little meteor junk in it. And everybody just goes, oh yeah, it's just part of the Earth. And I go, what? Like, what? It's all over.
Yeah.
The entire Earth. Like, that was a huge thing. They go, well, yeah, we just use that as like a bookmark, essentially.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But it's easy to get caught up in.
So many things. Benji and I were talking about this a little bit on the way over about how there's things that 50, 100 years ago would have blown people's minds, but now just things that are now common knowledge like that, kind of nobody really thinks too much about it anymore. And sometimes that can be dangerous if you forget the past and then end up...
Because new trumps significant and old. If you have a new dinosaur, no matter what, it'll make people look away from whatever the old thing is that is somewhat revelatory. They say, oh, it's new, because they're always looking for new, the biggest, the smallest, the weirdest.
And a T-Rex.
And a T-Rex.
That's why everything is in the news, a T-Rex.
Everything has to at least, everything has to mention a T-Rex, right? In every news article, even if someone, a new plant from the...
Yeah,
you know,
the T-Rex era.
This was
on it,
after T-Rex, but still T-Rex has got to be.
Yeah.
Every time you, like, everywhere you go, it's a Carcharodontus tooth, because they're everywhere on the black market. You buy them at mineral shows all over the place.
I have
like,
3 of them.
Yeah. But, you know, you can pick them up for $0.25, basically. They're everywhere. But the fact that they're like, this is the Tyrannosaurus of X place. It's the Tyrannosaurus of South America, the Tyrannosaurus of here. But it's actually the Carcharodontosaurus. It's actually the Megalosaurus. It's actually this or that. But like, oh, it's a T-Rex of blah, you know, whatever.
I wonder if kids in Argentina have like the opposite, where they get a T-Rex tooth in the mail or something, and
they're like,
it's a Carcharodontosaur of North America.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it all depends on the locale.
Yeah.
Because here, I'm sure everybody is crazy in love with, and are obviously, like your Stego, your Triceratops, your T-Rex, all the big. But I can't imagine what it would be like to be a kid in Australia. Especially now, with everything popping, the Metabarosaurus and all their sauropods, and it just feels like they're having their own little tiny dinosaur renaissance. And to get to have that, because by, like, you know, all of us popped way after paleontology, and all the new stuff was sort of, you know, whatever. But Australia had nothing until recently, and so they get to have their own little paleo party.
Yeah.
And marsupials.
And marsupials.
You get to have them.
And like most of the things that are basically designed to destroy you.
Yeah.
So they had to have something to look forward to, I suppose.
Yeah. You will die, but you can have a dinosaur.
Yeah,
Right.
you can have,
You're dying where a dinosaur once stood, and they go, thank God, dead.
That's the other fact you always hear. They're like, that water you're drinking, a dinosaur peed that out at one point.
Oh my
It's all recycled.
Yes.
You mean in a closed system, nothing can escape? Someone
know,
alert
yeah.
the presses.
That salad we ate, a dinosaur probably ate that salad.
Probably eat
too.
that salad.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I used to.
Except for me with the angiosperm components of that salad, which are
True.
unless it depends on the...
Yeah. We're lucky there.
Yeah.
Same fundamental building blocks, though, right? I mean, it's an unbroken biological chain.
Yes.
All the people who tell me that they can prove their lineage back to like the Victorian or
Tiktaalik.
Edwardian, they say, "Oh, you know, I know who I was related to on the Mayflower. I don't have to prove shit. I'm alive, so I can prove myself all the way back to a single cell."
Yeah.
But you've got a piece of paper
Yeah.
that says, I was a shoemaker."
Yeah.
Or my
Yeah.
friend, my great great granddad was a shoemaker.
How stinking profound is that, though? That's one of
Pretty,
those things that we
right?
kind of blow around talking about it now. But yeah, the fact that we do all go back to that's just incredible.
You could not exist if that chain were broken.
It's
You made it through every extinction. The Permian, that big one, boom, you made it. The KT, boom, you made it. All of them. Nothing can knock you out because here you are. But what do
Send
you do with
another
that?
asteroid.
Yeah, let's do it.
But that's the you would take the Earth down to like 0.001% of whatever life it has, and in a couple million years it'll bounce back. It's done it so many times, it's almost annoying. Like you cannot kill whatever life is.
Can't kill ferns, that's for sure. Ferns
Yeah.
are kind of the big things that always seem to. And the fern spike is a thing that I guess people notice at the end of big extinctions. Is ferns are usually the first things to kind of bounce back because there's.
Because they're so rudimentary, right? They're
I
just-
think basically they are kind of like, all right, we're
Yeah.
and what?
I was here before oxygen.
Yeah.
So
I guess that's what are you gonna
what's
do?
fire?
Yeah, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
we'll be back in another couple million years.
Yeah.
But that's what'll do you. Evolution will do you wrong in that if you get too specialized. You
Yes.
say stupid. Stay an ant. Stay a fern. Stay a beetle. No problem. the more specialized you get. I remember watching, and I don't know if this is even considered true or false or what anymore because of all the changes. But when Spinosaur hit, and they were like, "Oh my God, it's the first aquatic dinosaur," and all this other stuff, and they're like, "How did it die? Why did it die?" And I think, why even ask that question? Number one, but the fact that they were like, well, it just became hyper specialized. It was a hyper carnivore, hyper specialized, and bred itself out of existence. Really though?
There were a lot of climactic changes at
Exactly.
that time as well. So,
Yeah.
but it was that hyper specialization, where it's like no life form is technically more complex than another.
No, it just has a niche.
It just has a niche. There's complexity in how you live. And so when you hyper specialize to be an aquatic or amphibious predator feeding off a specific type of prey in a specific type of environment,
Yeah, you're
good
gone.
for you as long as it's there. And then when it's not, neither are you. And so that's why, ants do really well, raccoons do really well, rats do really well, cockroaches,
The building blocks never go away. Like we build it like we are essentially the castle of Lego. We're the pinnacle of whatever evolution has been able to spit out so far. But all those things fall down. We're always left with the junk that just sort of builds itself back up. It's just we missed, in some respects, we missed the part where we all got to be giant monsters.
Yeah.
But now we get to think about it and enjoy them and go, that would have been interesting to be a giant monster. We sort of get to live vicariously through your work.
I would have loved to be a 40-foot reptile.
Just like...
We're going to be the giant monsters that the roaches that inherit the earth in 6 million years are going to be looking
They'll dig
back
us
at.
up, yeah. And be like,
tiny
oh my
little
God.
museums. That'll be adorable.
Yeah.
But, inevitable that you have to make way for something else.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, too. Like, science-minded, I'm sure scientists never think of this, but as a child or as a layman, you think, if I get to put, like, the thought experiment of putting your brain in something else's body, there's always that, someone's always going to be like, well, the learning curve of the body, whatever. I feel like you're just going to pick it up. You don't know how to do this. Like, explain to someone how to do, I'm opening and closing my hand for the listening audience. How do you do that? You're going to pop into a dinosaur body. You're going to know right away. You're just going to be like, the thing will be finding food and how till you go to the bathroom, essentially. Because what's up down there? We don't have any soft tissue.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Well, we've got that Psittacosaur cloaca.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's some amazing preservation.
Just imagine, like in a
It's good
billion.
come online too, by the way, when you're already married, so it doesn't matter.
See my
But
petrified cloaca.
yeah,
Ew. I keep a picture of it in my wallet.
Yeah.
But just imagine,
that would be great. Picture in your wallet. What do you think this is?
on what planet? Let's say we rewind the clock 100 years ago, and you walk up to someone, and you say, "Can you imagine what if someday someone found a petrified butthole? Would they be excited about it?" And then go, "No, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." And here we are today, going, "Oh my God, we've got the
coolest
asshole of
thing
an
ever.
animal."
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Swish.
Yeah.
Well, St. George Dinosaur Museum up in Utah, that's the whole draw of their museum is, they're a riverbed that has a bunch of imprints of footprints and stuff. They have a butt print. They have one of the only dinosaur butt prints where a Dilophosaurus type animal came and just sat down by the riverbed and got up. It's
Nice.
not preserved to the detail of
Oh,
the
yeah.
Psittacosaurus, but
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
clearly here's the two legs, the tail, and where they sat down. And that's the centerpiece of their museum is a butt print.
Isn't
And,
it?
it is. It's just funny. It's like, we'll get up off these chairs and there's 4 in this room. But this one's preserved through time.
Yeah.
This is a special butt.
This is one singular butt.
So you guys are gonna have to figure out how to fossilize one of these butt prints we leave.
Yeah.
It's come up often
Bury
on
it
the
real
show.
fast.
Yeah.
I think here's the money making strategy. What you don't want to be fossilized. There's too many wild cards because even the fossils we have, too risky. Let's just cut through the crap and just do the amber thing. We've got Canada up north. We'll take some of that maple, dunk you in there, let you cure for a few million years, slice it in half. That DNA is still good.
I can do you better. We have resins now. We
Oh,
have those
yeah.
same resins that they preserve these things in.
Yeah.
When you're
Horrible for
ready,
the environment,
we can
but-
just lay you out. Yeah.
Right.
These dinosaurs we've made will last longer than the bones.
Yes.
They're just awful for the world. I have my degree's in conservation biology. So moving from that into a field where everything is just the worst possible for the environment has been very upsetting on a personal
For
level.
sure, yeah.
But Regardless, we can do a nice clear resin if you ever want. You know, we can Encino Man.
I'll bring that up because I've got a friend who really wants to be preserved somehow, and
After death?
Ideally.
Okay.
But that's the thing.
Make sure you get,
That's what we're going
I mean, Benji show up with equipment to his house one
Here's the
night.
thing. It gets
I check a
dicey.
pulse first. Most of the time.
I guess that's all right.
You either have
60%.
to be on call to 24/7 for their death rattle, or you have to be there with a hammer to be like, it's for the greater good.
Yeah.
Right?
Sorry, you're an organ donor.
Yeah, like
we're taking them
meaning
all.
of life when John Cleese shows up at the guy's house to take out his liver. I'm still using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some hard decisions have to be made there toward the end. But aside from that, I think it's a foolproof plan.
Yeah.
Just put someone, and you wouldn't have to freeze them or anything. Resin is the perfect, I can't believe it.
We'd probably have to dry them out a little first. There's
Oh
a
yeah,
process,
because you have to
So
you
liquid
know more
does
about
ruin
that.
a resin cure.
Yeah.
We can do another show about how it's
Yeah.
difficult to do that to a body.
Oh, I'm
but-
sure, yeah.
We could put him up. We used to put animals up on the roof of the lab to desiccate them.
Yeah.
So we could put him up there. I think
Get a
that
really big
space exists.
dehydrator.
Oh, yeah, here in
Yeah.
Arizona, it would take no time.
You could put a cow in a bucket full of water out here in the summertime, come back in a week, clean. You know, it's the easiest way to do it here. It makes a stew, essentially.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
And it's just a
it's
slow
just-
roast,
it's
you know. I used
disgusting.
to prep skeletons for the Phoenix Zoo. And that's how we would do it. We'd wait till the summer. We'd have them all in a freezer, things like that. And then we'd put them in Tupperware outside. And in about a week, you come back and all the flesh has come off. It boils them.
Oh, for
Is
sure.
what
yeah.
it does. It's
Ew.
because, you know, when it gets 120 degrees outside, it literally cooks them. So it is like beef stew. Some were worse than others, but it was the fastest way we could prep it out. You know, we tried the beetles. It was difficult with the beetles. We did the burying.
Okay.
We did the natural desiccation, and that one was the fastest for this location.
Yeah, I imagine everywhere you need to work with what you got. And Arizona is such a layup with the heat because I never even would have thought. But again, I would never look for flesh removal of a large animal.
It's but I mean, it's the water
It's a
that's
niche
doing
hobby.
it too. I have a story that involves Andy Farkey that involves doing that kind of thing.
I'm open to it.
Class that we took in School of Mines, comparative osteology. We had to. One of the projects was we had to deflesh and prep an animal, and then describe it to the class. We'd say, okay, we had, my animal was a badger, or someone else had like a coyote.
Okay.
And my animal actually was a badger that I picked up off roadkill and strapped to the back of my car because I wasn't going to put it in the car because it kind of smelled.
Buckle in the side
Big
seat.
old, big old heavy guy. But
HIB lane.
it was time to deflesh the badger, and I pulled all the skin and meat off, and I knew intellectually that it wasn't going to be a fat animal inside. It was going to be, a little muscle on the thing. But boy, it was just this, red, skinny muscle thing on the inside. But the fur would not, as I was kind of like undressing it.
In such a way.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I get
So
you.
rolling down the meat and the fur and the fat from the body. And by the time I got to the knees, it was hard to get it off. So I said, you know what? I'm going to hang it on some rebar. So I hung it with its arms up, like someone doing a chin up, right? And I start to pull it, and then at some point, I actually decided I got to get the head off for some reason. So I cut the throat, and its head leaned back, and it looked like a little kid suddenly, like a little red meaty kid. And
my
some
God.
police officers were having a conference in the building next door, and they came
defleshing
out
a
as
child
I'm defleshing
next
a child.
door.
Yeah,
Oh my
and I don't remember if Farkey was actually there in the parking lot at the time, but the cops were like, "What are you doing?" And I'm in like a lab coat, and some other guys are in their lab coats, and we're all like bloody.
Yeah.
And like they have their hand on there. They weren't pointing at us, but they have their hand on their weapon. And he's like, "What is that?" It's like, "Oh, that's a badger. That's a child. I recognize a child anywhere." I was like, "No, sir, it's just a badger."
Yeah.
And then they got closer. I was like, "Oh, we're gonna get like arrested or shot in our lab coats with like these bloody animals out because they're doing it in the parking lot."
Right.
And
There were plenty of context clues, is what you're putting down, which I am picking up. There are plenty of context clues for which the police could have picked up to be like, oh, look, an institution of learning. We've got people in lab coats. This is obviously something you would not want to do. You would disguise it at least under the cover of
disguise
night.
the cover of night.
At the very least.
And they got, as we were worried we're going to get shot at, they got
Jeez.
closer, and then the smell hit them, and they all just turned on, and then left. So, if you ever need to do something like illegal, make sure
sure
there's
it
a
smells.
smell.
Yeah.
Because apparently,
I've got
it's
a
a big deterrent for
vintage
dogs.
South Dakota.
can of aerosol fart spray from 1989. I've been saving for just. No, I'm kidding.
That will kill somebody at this point. Yeah.
Just get one of those plants that smells like
That's
rotten
a war
flesh.
crime now. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a fart spray cellar in this house. They're all on the rack, so it was a nice year, 1987. For whatever I commit a crime, I just, it keeps the cops away. Yeah, that's something you would never even think of too, because there are so many things to pick apart in this science. I would never, if I wanted to be a paleontologist, and someone was like, "Okay, you've got to take a animal and rip it apart," I'd be like, "Probably not going to happen for this guy."
It depends on what you're doing. So it's, interesting. I made that career switch from preserving life to dealing with it after. And there is the ability to make a disconnect, There's a difference from, I'm not going home and skinning my own dog.
Right, yeah. It's
this is a specific specimen for this. Something like roadkill like that. It's easy to put up that block of like, okay, this is for learning.
Yeah.
This is for science.
I did not know this thing, and it's already dead.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't have to go out and be like, "Sorry, bonk."
Sorry,
I
Yeah,
skipped
we
it.
didn't bonk the badger on the head
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
So.
I skipped in biology back in school where we had to dissect a pig. I was like, nope, not doing it.
We didn't get
I
to do
skipped
that.
class.
Yep. When it still has a face, it's very difficult because as people, you connect with that.
Yeah.
And so even a little animal, it's like hard to be like, don't look at me. You cover the face.
Anything, even if it's hideously ugly, if it's got two eyes and it's looking at you, you go, ah.
I did get scared one time because they had something already pre-prepped that I didn't know what it was. And I opened it up and it was a javelina.
Wow.
And I opened this little Tupperware, and this javelina just comes out like this.
What?
And it was floating in the water, so it kind of bobbed up. But I opened it up, and this head, this one still had fur. It was not prepped properly before. I had to peel the face, but that frightened me so much. Opening a Tupperware in some alley somewhere, and a pig.
Jeez.
No thanks.
Yeah,
That one was scary.
Should we come and do that one time at your house?
We'll pick a field to maybe do it in. I'll
There's
bring a
enough
tent.
around here.
Yeah, that's,
It's good for the corn they grow.
Yeah.
that's one thing that about, especially living out here, I sort of now get to see a lot of animal behavior and some stuff that you would never expect but happen. Like, this is wildly off topic now, but whatever. When the farm land around here gets tilled, there's all this rows of stuff, and the land gets moved. And for the next day, it's nothing but a stomping ground for hawks and vultures.
Mm-hmm.
They don't fly; they just walk. It's just these huge, just groups of blackbirds looking around for things that got torn up by the farm material,
Yeah.
or waiting for the trepidatious family member of someone who was torn apart. And every time especially with birds, every time I look out and I see this behavior, I think this is a straight up dinosaur behavior. Like anytime there's a massive, like the centrosaur bone bed up in Canada, anytime there's a massive die-off of something, there's going to be these things lurking around and doing all this weird shenanigans. And it's still happening today, albeit on a smaller, like ground squirrel type level. But the behavior did not go anywhere. Spooky to watch, though, too, because it's just like an unholy alliance. When you see an active predator, these huge Harris hawks or whatever, basically sitting on a little clump of dirt right next to someone, like the vulture, who's like their exact opposite. And they're like, yeah, what are you going to do? Just waiting for these chunks of crap to come floating up from the...
Yeah.
It's such an incredible... So now seeing that depicted with paleo animals is really cool.
Yeah.
Because we sort of went through that phase of the slow, then with Bacher, everything was fast and scary, and now things are starting to get real.
Which is sometimes unpopular because people want the sexy.
I was going to say people are mad now because it's like, I know a lot of people who are mad are like, I'm so upset. Where's all the violence? I liked it better when dinosaurs were killing each other in pictures. I don't want to watch a Triceratops lay down.
Right,
That's boring. And I'm like, well, the purpose of this art is to say this is something real. And are you constantly murdering things? Right. Are you out doing exciting, adventurous things? Like, no. It's most of the time you're also just sitting there. So it's like...
When you're watching that PBS documentary...
Shows.
Yeah, exactly. You're watching PBS or Nova comes on, it's not a constant... chase between the lions and the gazelles. It's a lot of just doing jack crap.
And it took 4 years to even get that.
To get the 30 minutes of
and that's I get why, and that's why I think Jurassic Park has to really up the ante, where they take the mosasaur that's like 12 feet and they turn it into a 40-foot monster or whatever, because the public at large just want to see something crazy.
Yeah.
But for those of us behind that first layer, it's finally sort of vindicating to see these dinosaurs acting as animals instead of just like, because popular culture would depict the Paleozoic era as this constant, violent, shouting volcano, toxic clouds and giant insects, and it's all a madhouse. But nature isn't like that now. We've still got everything we do back then, just in different forms. And you don't see, like, we as a species aren't running around tearing at our hair because everything is just a madhouse. Yeah. But that's what people want to see. Yeah. And I can't imagine what those cockroach paleontologists of the future will just be depictions of us, like, rending our flesh. It'll be like...
setting off nukes and drinking cappuccinos.
It'll all be like Dante's Inferno to them. I can't do... It'll be all... the future from... The past from the future will all look like Gustave Doré. Just like a cockroach being like, can you believe they all just constantly gnash to each other and we're shooting at each, like they'll find all the guns and the swords and stuff, and it'll just be like a blow up futuristic nightmare, and a cockroach will be like, can you believe they live like that? Yeah. And then 20 years later they go, oh, they just drove cars.
Yeah.
They're just like us. Regular roaches who just walk around every day. But it's not fun and it's not sexy, but it's comforting. To know that it wasn't, because that's, especially when you're a kid too, the scary aspect is sort of appealing.
Mm-hmm. I like that the paleo artists are now starting to, I mean, we were just talking about how we like it, but I really like that they're starting to, at least some are starting to kind of pay a little bit more attention to the reality. And maybe that's, I mean, there's still plenty of roaring, drooling. You're not going to...
It's never going to go away.
It's going to go away.
My goal is to make those boring habits exciting. Like, we're putting a saber cat on the mountain. We're doing a homotherium.
Okay.
It's going to be asleep. It's going to be laying there. And so, everyone has him
awesome.
roaring, attacking, doing all this. He's going to be chilling on a log, just hanging out.
Because he's a friggin' cat.
He's a living animal. 20 hours a day, We're trying to do, we're thinking, because everyone told me, they're like, well, you have to show the fangs. You have to see the sharp, snarling fangs. I was like, okay, cool. So he's going to be laying on a log where his lips pulled up. I was like, I could do a yawn, I could do this, but it's like, no, it's an animal. This is what people want to see. It's what they do. It's like, you go to the zoo. It's essentially what we're trying to do here. And just let people know this is a real thing. And it's, as dinosaurs become more like birds, I think they're more interesting. I think they're cooler, because it's like, okay, I can get what you're doing. I know that. I can make reference to this. I understand, you're not some killer animal running around all the time. Dinosaurs probably played.
Exactly.
Dinosaurs probably did stupid things, had fun.
Got their head stuck in a log.
You have to think of it. Even
and
though
somebody died with their head stuck in a log someday.
Even though the shapes change, whether you're going from like that big weird Permian floating head they just found that was bonkers and bananas, all the way up to like a cow that I see every day driving home. The niches are all the same. They're all going to be filled by the same thing. And the behaviors will be almost the same too, I feel. Because like whether you're a 2-foot dragonfly or a 6-8 centimeter dragonfly, you're going to fly around and eat the same shit, albeit scaled up. And you're going to be eaten by basically the same things, albeit scaled up too. So it's the boring part that I like. But this is also coming from a guy whose favorite sauropod, and maybe dinosaur, is the Camarasaur.
Not a bad one.
Wait. Maybe?
Maybe. I've been doing some soul searching.
Okay.
It's hard because with dinosaurs, you can slice them up into all those delicious little chunks. Your sauropods, your theropods, your ceratopsians, yada, yada. You can say, well, I have a favorite of each. Somebody eventually has to rise above. And why not be a long neck?
Yeah. Is that why you pick Camarasaurus? Why is it your favorite?
Purely aesthetics. Number one, because it was just easily accessible at the museum. Number two, I love the shape of their head. And since it's one of the sauropods we actually have heads of.
Yeah.
I love it. Obviously. The chambered head of that chambered lizard, I love. And the fact that it's not... Because maybe this is pure aesthetics also, but I didn't want to be like the flashy guy who's like, oh, I like the Amargasaur or the Nigersaur. Like, find one of those sauropods that have the wild... the spikes, the thagomizers, the sails, the fins, the whatever, the log. Farkey likes his cows of the Cretaceous. He calls them. He likes his ceratopsians, and I like the Camarasaurs because the first three dinosaurs you're going to hit as a child is either going to be a long neck, a stegosaur, or a tyrannosaur. Sometimes the Triceratops, obviously, but all the bells and whistles get tired. Then you go, oh well. Then you just have something that's dependable. Like the Camarasaur is the Camry. The Toyota
The Camry.
Yes.
Camarasaur.
The Toyota Camariasaura.
Oh man,
Yeah.
there you go.
Classic. It'll get you where you need to go. There's nothing fancy about it. No bells and whistles, but it'll go 300,000 miles, and we know a lot about it. Because don't get me wrong,
respect that.
I would probably jump onto any number of other sauropods if we had their heads.
Yeah.
Because those are the most compelling parts to me.
Yeah.
Because the structure that they have to, by whether it be a theropod, a sauropod, or whoever, the mechanics of the jaw and the head and all those muscles and the brain and the eyes are just, that's what turns me on. Like, because I love, whenever I think back in my memory, I can point to the one thing that made me do this. It was Bob Bacher drawing up a T-Rex, and he's like, check this out. He's like, the eyes are facing forward. They have binocular vision. That was the first time I heard that word. And I was like, I'm never going to forget this. So I was like, the skull is where it's at.
Yeah.
So that's another reason that the Camarasaur is so easy, because it's like, well, they were everywhere.
Yeah.
There's one there. Here it is. And the holotype is really cool looking.
Yeah. They're, your biological purpose is make more of you, and to do that you have to eat. So your entire body is geared towards moving things towards your mouth so you can eat. And so the diversity of heads and structures that inform that is so amazing. That's why I also prefer ceratopsians. I think they're fun because it's just like the same body that you just swap the head around on. They're all the same. They all look very similar in the body. You just have a wildly different face. And to me, that's fun. It's like having a Lego set or a Barbie you can switch the hat around with. But it's all geared towards display, making more, and what they can do with that and eat. It's amazing.
It's all of it is in service of getting junk through a series of tubes.
Yep.
All life can be boiled down to that. Everything you do is in effort to get something through a tube. The end. And
Oh my God.
The skull is where it all has to go through, basically. And
Yet
that's
there's so many headless sauropods.
Exactly. That's why it's so
Can you
frustrating.
go back in time? There will be sauropods literally with no heads and just.
It is.
We just thought there were no skulls on them.
Yeah.
No, these animals were headless.
Like a giant earthworm.
Yeah,
like
they
a
have a front cloaca that opens and closes. Ugh.
Like a lamprey.
Yeah. Or like one of
that would be
those
awful.
giant
dune
lamprey.
worms or a
Yeah, that's
sandworm. Maybe they'll have like
sandworm.
a xenomorph type thing that pops out that we just haven't found.
Tremor.
Tremors. Yeah, anything. Tentacles, I'll take it all. But that's the thing.
Tremors?
I've seen all 8 movies.
Really?
Okay, good. We don't get me started on Tremors, but we can if you want to. Because my
First,
God.
I want to ask, how long ago did you get your tattoo?
It's been a while.
When the last time you had one?
October 2018. So 3 years now.
Yeah,
I want one.
I remember the first time when Elliot was I think it was during the stamp release or whatever.
Oh,
when
yeah.
Elliot was baby.
Baby Elliot.
And you had just popped on it, I think. It's been a while, yeah.
Could have been right, yeah. This actually angered a child.
What?
This kind of goes to your, what you were talking about your soul searching for dinosaurs. About a year ago, I realized that I don't have a favorite ankylosaur necessarily. I just like ankylosaurs.
It's a nice body shape.
And so when I said, somebody asked me what my favorite dinosaur is, I'm like, I don't really have a particular species. And I don't know, a few weeks ago, some kid, I was doing something in the new exhibit. I take care of the animals in there. And I was doing something. Sometimes people are in there. And the kid's like, oh, that's an ankylosaur. What's your favorite? And I said, oh, I like ankylosaurs. He's like, what's your favorite kind? I'm like, I kind of like the ones with the clubs. And he was just dissatisfied. And you could tell, disgusted. And I'm like, oh, man.
I didn't know.
It's a hard answer.
Until I met David, I didn't know there was more than one kind of ankylosaur. I just always have liked just the ankylosaur. That's it. And he's like, well, there's however many different species. I'm like, oh, well, the one with the club.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Whenever you say ankylosaur, people think club.
Yeah.
Which is that, but that's all you need when you say ankylosaur. You think euplacephalus, essentially. That's standard.
Well, the ones with the clubs are the best ones.
Yeah.
Well, true. Yeah. Does your love of ankylosaur stem to the nodosaur family?
I do like
club
nodosaur.
whistle.
I mean, there's still ankylosaurs, but as far as do I like them, I don't like them as much. No.
It's kind of like hatchback
Although they
versus
have cooler,
sedan.
they tend to have cooler spines.
They're very pointy.
yeah.
I do.
If you like shoulder spikes, like if you're a Kiss fan, nodosaurs, right?
Yes.
And Matonia, right?
Core.
Yeah, core. That's where you're at. If you're an ankylosaur, you're like a Metallica, you're like a Pantera, something like that. It's all aesthetics, even though like it's so funny that it's just a clump of junk somewhere else. But wild,
Badass. Though.
badass. Yeah. That's the thing.
And a pattern that shows up in glyptodonts, glyptodonts later on, like Dodocaris, I think is the name of the big one in South America that has the big mace on the end of its tail.
Yeah. And there was that turtle that had this.
Oh
one,
yeah,
too.
there was that turtle too, that
club-tailed
wacky turtle.
turtles.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
the Zool ankylosaur, does that?
That's a
He
club.
has a club. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's part of the club.
He's I like it, the club.
The club.
Zool popped for me at least right around the same time they found that that nodosaur mummy in that quarry.
Yeah, me too. About the same time. Yeah.
So it's the same sort of. I don't know. The ankylosaur with the club feels like the finished idea. You know what I mean? When you see a nodosaur, you see, oh boy, all this armor, and you think, well, what do you do with it? Then you see the ankylosaur, you see that hammer, you see that that hatchet. Essentially, you go, that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Nodosaur was the prototype. It's 80% done.
Yeah. Well, it's like stegosaurs. I feel like ankylosaurs have gone through a lot of change recently too. How they're depicted and seen. A little longer, stegosaurs have had the same thing, where their look has varied a lot. A lot of the original specimens and stuff were compiled from different age groups as well. So now that we're finding more of them, Stegosaurus is another dinosaur that's super popular, but you don't hear a lot about it.
No, they
But
had
it
more of
recently
a.
has had a lot of shift. Yeah, there's just not a lot about it.
It's a more subtle shift, I think, for the stegosaur. Because if you look at, everybody does this, but you've got like what they look like when they were discovered, all the way blah 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 to today.
Yeah,
the stegosaur is not wildly like it's no Spinosaur, it's no T-Rex.
The main difference is from looking at your picture up there that you see now is the stance. You see a lot of the differences now. You've got the tail dragging old fashioned stance on that picture. But also, I think there's still debate. I should probably ask Stegosaur. I actually don't personally know any Stegosaur workers.
It's hard.
I don't know Stegosaurus either.
But you don't know Stegosaurus personally?
No. Yeah.
The actual arrangement of the plates on the back, I think, is still contentious. Like gosh, when I was a little kid, I had a dinosaur book.
From individual.
Right.
Which individual variation is a pain in the butt.
I love it though, because that's the thing I think of as an artist is, if you look at all the famous Tyrannosaur specimens, their heads are all wildly different.
Yeah.
Sue is different than Stan from Victoria, from Scotty, from all those.
But is it like not to interrupt?
No,
keep going. But does that feel more like wild osteological differences, or is it like battle damage, or is it like the one we have at the museum where it's crushed?
It's both.
Okay.
And so it does depend sometimes on how well they're able to reconstruct the compression. But a lot of times, too, it's individual variation, If you look at all of our skeletons, clearly there's diagnostic that's a human skeleton.
For sure.
But my bones are very different from your bones, from yours. You would be able, if you knew how, you could reconstruct us as a different individual and how different we all look in this room. And it's that same fun thing about dinosaurs is I prefer to make an individual rather than a composite like that. a lot of what we see, especially with skeletons, because you almost never find a full dinosaur, there's a lot of composite
For
groups.
sure, yeah.
But that's the cool part about tyrannosaurs is we do have individuals. Like Big Jules, the hadrosaur, she's an individual from Sonora, Mexico. And so actually we had the paper, I took the measurements of that specific specimen and applied it to this model. So it's not just, I found this composite skeleton online, it's a specific one. And so doing things like that is really cool because it just adds to that life for me where you can see each of these were their own animal.
Right.
They were their own thing. They lived their own life. And it's more exciting for that way.
Yeah. Not to invoke the cockroach paleontologists of the future again, but imagine that.
They'll hear this because this will go on forever.
Oh, let's hope.
Yeah.
I'll shoot this into space.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, we all look different. But if you were to look up pull up all of our skeletons, we would, you would not know necessarily about hair, about soft structure and stuff like that. So God knows what is being left off of stuff. And so the composite is good to give you a general outline. Like you could look into a crowd of people and see a bunch of pink heads and be like, humans.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're going to be replicating a single, especially for a museum or a piece of art or something, why not? Because all of them were an individual. They would all have a story with scars, different, people are born today, all walks of weird life. What if you had like a tiny leg or your tail was all weird or like, maybe or maybe not, if their tail chopped off and it started to grow back or any other all and sundry is there.
Yeah.
But we all see the little plastic molds of the stegosaur, the tyrannosaur that all look pretty cookie cutter. But yeah, it must have been wild to see, and you'll never know.
Yeah.
They could all be canary yellow running around looking like little lemon drops running around a green backdrop. It could have looked like Fisher Price for all we know. That's the thing. You'll never know. And that's what I will always come back to it to see everybody's interpretation, because seeing the craziest person's interpretation of a dinosaur versus the sanest, both are valid.
Yeah. And the cool part is as we know more, you start to see some homogeneity in the work, where it's like a lot of Tyrannosaur work looks pretty similar now. But we know a lot about Tyrannosaurs more than pretty much any other type of dinosaur.
Oh, for sure.
There's a lot of homogeneity in Triceratops because of the same. There's so many of them. We know a lot. But we're never going to know everything.
No.
And that's the really exciting part to me, and what draws me to this is there's always going to be some of that mystery of we're just never going to know.
Because we don't know everything about things that are alive now,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
including us.
The biggest
We don't
gimmick
know
of
how
all.
our brain works.
No.
Yeah. The biggest gimmick of all is novelty and
Yes.
mystery. And if you can say, you could be a nerd like me too and be a Jack the Ripper fan, a case that'll never be solved. And if you're like me, you hope it never will be solved.
Yeah.
Because then it dies. I don't know, maybe you're not into this, maybe you are, but all this Zodiac
Yeah,
killer
they
rumblings.
just found them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they just figured
Wait,
out
they
this.
did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He died in
Hypothetically.
2018 or something like that.
Was that movie any accurate at all? The one with what's his face and what's their names? Where the
It's-
guy.
Here's the thing. It's so wildly and hotly debated, you might as well bring up Nanotyrannus, right?
Oh,
It's the same.
Yeah.
Because it's the same with Jack the Ripper, same with Zodiac. If there wasn't someone alive or caught it on film or whatever, you're never going to get consensus.
Yeah.
So
You just also reminded
do
me
it.
I got to get an album called Get Jack, which is a musical about Jack the Ripper, written by Kip Winger, who was a lead singer
really,
in the 80s
from
band.
Winger?
Yes. He's a Grammy-nominated classical musician now, actually.
I believe that.
Yeah. He may have won a Grammy, actually. But anyway, you just reminded me, oh, yeah, I got to get that album. Okay, sorry.
Wild stuff. Yeah. So, but now we can talk about Tremors. So when Jamie Foxx, when Jamie Kennedy joined the Tremors, the Tremors train, how did you find that? Number one.
I watched the original one. So I watched Tremors as a kid.
No, I mean when he showed up. When Jamie Kennedy showed up, what was it, 5 or 6?
Do you know who that
he's
is?
I don't know.
He's
I'm sorry,
Bert-
I don't know.
Sorry, okay, so
I know that man.
Burton Gumber.
The one who's in all of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
His old son is Jamie Kennedy. Right? Yeah. Jamie Kennedy. So when he shows up, whatever, round 5, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, I'm here for," and he's like this punk rock, but he's like 50, And Burt Gummer is like a 70-year-old
Yeah.
dude who's like, I'm still living in perfection, Nevada. And Jamie Kennedy shows up 50, faced like Roy, was it Roy Scheider from Jaws? Looks like a catcher's mitt. Like,
Yeah.
like wearing like a leather jacket, like the cool guy glasses. Like, you don't understand me, Dad. And I'm like, you're 52.
Yeah. You should understand you better than that now,
Like-
yeah.
The fact that I had to watch a whole movie of them being like, you don't get me, Dad. And like these people are like basically on AARP.
Yeah.
I'm glad they finally kicked that for when they went to Alaska or wherever for this.
Yeah, the Antarctica one.
God,
What?
I missed out
I
a
love
lot.
that.
I did
It
not
gets
know
more
that.
and more insane. So there's like an order to him. Like
Yeah.
it's him, Bert, and he just became this like world famous tremor hunter. And every new movie's like a new environment and a special type of tremor
But he never leaves
adapted to that
perfection.
environment.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. He still lives in, that
He
little
lives
tiny
in,
Nevada
he works
town.
at Wong's
but-
place still.
Yeah.
Was it Wong or was it Chen? God,
Is that a real town? That should be like a tourist
Perfection,
attraction.
Nevada.
I mean,
it's like-
I'm sure it's not Perfection, Nevada, but where they filmed it, I wonder if that's a real little
It
town.
was only like 3 trailers, so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got it. But yeah. But that was, again, gimmicks. They did it
Yep.
to the nines. You did the first one, giant worms. No gimmick needed. You already got it. Second one was the Screamers? Or did they come
Were
in
they
the
the
third
flying
one?
ones?
The babies. The
Okay.
little tiny ones that ran around on land.
Yeah, okay,
That
so
was
you had the
that was-
Screamers and then the
Yeah.
ass blasters of the third.
Yeah.
Okay. Then
What
that's
a-
where I stopped. I don't know what happened after that. So they went to okay, wow.
They travel back in time. Now they don't travel back in time, but there is a retcon. The fourth one
Wild
takes place in
Western
Wild
one,
West.
yeah.
Yeah. Where he basically, Burt Gummer of the Old West has like a huge gun that is essentially just a cannon that they just
Yep.
like, oh, we'll just shoot it with a giant gun.
Yeah.
Whoa, great, Burt, thanks. And that was it.
It was fun.
Wow.
You should watch them all.
I will watch them.
A lot
There's
of, they're on Netflix.
that movie is
It is
a.
worth.
I think they toss a bone to science in there with the geologist, and at least in the first one,
Yeah,
an actual scientist.
yeah, because Kevin Bacon and the other dude, whose name I can't, Burt Ward, that's not his name. Burt.
No, I think that is his name.
it Burt
the
Ward?
actor's name, right?
No
Or
way.
no, Willard.
Burt Willard.
Fred Willard. No.
Fred Willard. No,
Darn it.
Whatever. Kevin Bacon and company, right?
Oh, it's
Yeah.
gonna.
When they show up to talk to the
You can't leave it. We have to know which one this
Somebody
is.
can Google it.
It's Fred Willard is not that. Fred
No.
Willard is in Spinal Tap and stuff.
yeah, Fred Willard's a
SCTV comedian, yeah, and Best in Show. Oh, I think
yeah.
it is Ward. Fred Ward.
Fred
I think
Ward,
it is.
But yeah,
He was
he
also in Time Rider. Speaking of time travel, which
and
I
he was
recommend,
in like Remy or
where
something.
he turns out that he's his own grandpa,
Oh, fun.
but they don't even really bring that up as a plot point. He basically goes back in time
It's a big
and ends
whoops.
up making out.
Well, if
No,
he's his
I
own
think he actually
grandpa, I
straight
think
up.
making out was where it
No,
started.
I think no. 'Cause I think that's what happened. I think it did. I think he actually ended up.
being his own grandpa.
He ended up being his own grandpa because he goes back and falls in love with someone. He's like a. Oh my, never mind. We're not going to talk about
Reba
this now.
McEntire was in Tremors?
Yes, she was married to Bert.
Who
She was
is
great.
Michael Gross was Bert.
Yeah, Michael
But
Rose.
Fred Ward is Earl
Yeah, Fred Ward.
Bassett.
Okay.
Okay.
Because Michael,
Sorry for the that name. I had
Yeah.
yeah.
because Michael Gross was in, was it Family Ties?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
And he's like, kids, it's the 80s. And I was like, I hated that show.
These were sitcoms, Benji. They were a thing back in the 80s.
I've seen
Yeah.
Seinfeld.
horrible things. Okay.
Here, I'll tell you, here's a little bit of inside baseball that I know. So, Bert, after being on Growing Pains or Family Ties and then on Tremors, he plays a rapist in SVU.
Oh,
But everybody,
Yeah.
because SVU's been on for 400 years. Everybody who's anybody's been on SVU. But when he shows up, I expected him to be like, listen, this is all well and good, but there are fucking monsters under the ground. I wanted him to pull Elliot Stabler aside and be like, you don't understand. Like, he's just shell
Spin-off
shocked.
show.
Law and Order.
Tremors in New
Graboid.
Yeah.
Has there been one in a city? Like, have they had one like that
No.
they get to New York?
My favorite genre of monster movie is giant alligators in New York sewers. There's
that's
like,
That's a genre?
from
there's
the
like
70s.
12 movies like that, even more.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's great. All of them are good.
I remember the
By
Gator
that,
People.
I mean they're not, but they're
Yeah.
great.
I think the first one was called Alligator, right?
Yeah,
it was a
alligator comes
giant-
to mind. I would not go swimming for almost 3 years after the sun went down because of that. Because that's the scene at the wedding where the kid goes to jump in the pool playing pirate, and as soon as the lights come on, the alligator's mouth goes up and it swallows the child whole.
Oh man, classic.
The amount of people who've been swallowed by animals whole in B-grade movies could probably, if you started the footage now and go to the moon and back 400 times.
It's it's a fear that developed like how we were all afraid of quicksand as children.
What was
When
that?
it's not a real problem.
Yeah.
I thought it was just me.
No,
It was because it was in the...
Like, have any of us actually seen legitimate quicksand in real life?
No.
Because here's how it started. The 60s and the Monkeys reruns for this guy. Because you'd see the monkeys running around having shenanigans and they'd fall in quicksand. And then every Disney movie for a while had it.
Gilligan's Island.
Gilligan's Island, yeah. I was, especially here in Arizona where sand is everywhere, I was constantly on the lookout for the quick variety.
Yeah.
I never found it. But it's just one of those things that you don't, TV leads you to believe that
It's just quicksand everywhere. Wow. I didn't know this was I feel a little bit validated now. Thank you. I feel like I'm in a support group for quicksand. Not quicksand non-survivors.
Yeah, never seen it, haven't touched it, but definitely afraid.
Yes, yeah.
It's like a Maury show where they're all afraid of mustard or whatever. They go, "Oh."
Or on Ellen, she'll bring out a pile of quicksand.
Oh, man.
She brings in a bucket.
I'm sure it's got its own phobia name.
Oh, for sure. Anything you can be afraid of is a name to
another thing
be
to
afraid
Google.
of.
Yeah. Oh, she's going to Google it.
Yeah.
You think it's a long, complicated name for the phobia, or is it going to be something simple?
What's
hope
Latin
it's
for
quick.
fast?
I don't know.
Latin for fast and sane.
Velocigranule.
Velocigranulophobia?
Velocigram.
No, that's completely ridiculous. Well, we got someone on the back burner over there. So, let's. I feel like I'm taking up a lot of your guys' time. So let's bring it back to the museum and start pushing that a little bit. So the new thing that is finally open. You have to get tickets online still, right? I don't want to be
You can. I think get tickets.
You can walk in. Okay.
You can walk in now.
We encourage you buy ahead, but you can get them in person.
When we were walking around downtown Mesa this very morning, a woman walked up and she was rattling the door. It must have been 9 or 10 o'clock. And she's like, do they open? I'm like, yeah, but later. And I'm like, it's totally worth it. But
It's like, we're from out of town. We'll just hang out.
Well, I hope she got to.
I said, ask for Gavin.
Just yell in the door.
Gavin!
Well, hopefully they went to downtown and enjoyed something from the merchants. I don't know exactly if there's food, if there's anything open
Not
to
much
eat.
is open before
9,
11.
but
Yeah, no.
We
not too
go there
different.
between 9 and 11. So
It's actually
that
not
Elliot
that
can
different in
respond.
Tempe either. Even though there's more. It's kind of
Downtown
like,
Mesa's fun because it's like a quasi Disneyland where it's like depopulated. You get the cobblestone, you got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's a little sketchy here or there, so it's not completely like a Winter Wonderland or whatever. But it like if you hit on a weekend before everybody rolls out of bed, it's like a perfect little downtown theme park.
Yeah.
and it's. I mean, since you guys, how long have you been a Mesa person? Or have you been around as long as him?
I moved here 10 years ago.
Okay, so you maybe saw it as it was getting better, but you have seen downtown Mesa especially go from kind of completely almost a dead zone to now it actually being a place where right now there's a lot of people down there right now because there's nightlife somewhat. There's restaurants and bars
And places open.
places open.
Right.
Yes.
That was always so frustrating as a... I was going to say as a kid, but to this day it's still frustrating.
All the stores open 10 to 3.
Yeah.
Like, why is no one coming? We're all at work.
Yeah, we're here Tuesday to Thursday between 10:15 and 10:18. Hope to
Closed
catch
on
you.
the weekends.
What the?
Yeah.
I would love like it. This is obviously now way off topic, but I would love to have a little shop down there that would never close, and I would just thumb my nose at literally every other shop. Like having them show up for their 3 hours a day and be like, "Oh, a part-timer I see," be like that annoying butthole.
Well, like the Mystic Shop down there, My Darling Dragon, isn't open till noon.
yeah, and it's behind
On the
2
weekends.
gates.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's next. It's like a Mystic Shop. They have like incense and stuff.
Tarots and it's
You know,
little,
the Bank One building.
Yeah.
There's that little walkway
it's in that
right
little-
there.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
breezeway.
it's toward the parking lot.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's probably another
Okay.
business akin to the Dickinson jewelry place because they're both behind those
Okay,
gates and it's
right.
like, hey, you know, we're open when we want to be open. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do have a back room with like those the beads that go down.
Oh,
So
the
you don't
bead
know
wall.
what goes
Yeah.
on back there.
Yeah.
There's also a salt. No, is it salt lamps or some kind of Crystal Lamps. There's a place there that's been there forever too. Like Crystal Lamps.
Downtown
And that's
Mesa
been there forever.
is bonkers. It's got a typewriter repair, watch repair. It's got the oldest music store ever in the world. Like Milano's was the first building erected in Arizona, I feel.
Wow.
I'm kidding.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it has been there a
Yeah,
long time. It's maybe the only. I wonder if it is the oldest business in downtown Mesa.
It is probably gained. That building has probably gained 6 inches in height and breadth from all the paint over these years.
Yeah.
Just alone, because it's been there so long. But it's if you're local, obviously you've hopefully been to downtown Mesa. If you're not, come here. We just had someone come in from out of town, and we brought them all the way, all the little shops in downtown Mesa, and I still love it. But it's nice to see someone get a fresh look at all this weird crap, especially like the art installation place that was there and then gone, that had the cool shark and then disappeared. It's like a constant revolving door of.
Yeah, there was that record store that was there for like a hot second. There was a cat. They had a cat there.
Oh yeah, the record store. Whoa, I can't remember what that's called, but they were cool.
There was the specialties
For a little
toy
place
store that moved and then disappeared.
Lulabelle's,
Yeah,
yeah.
Lulabelle. It's just
There was a steampunk store
Yeah.
there for a while.
downtown Mesa wants to be boho so hard,
But
but
it's-
something won't let it.
Well, I mean, now it's. I still think it's on the up. I think it's up swinging, and
Yeah,
it's got. I mean,
Now that they're building ASU downtown,
Mm-hmm.
right.
we're going to see a massive shift in everything there. It's
Yeah.
going to bring in new student life. It's a graduate school. So, late teens, early 20s kind of
Yeah,
people
it
coming
looks like
through.
things are starting to turn around, but it has been a slow going process. Because I remember when I was a kid, downtown Mesa was like, you don't want to be there.
They got an alcohol license because they realized it's the biggest tax donation to a city they can get. So
yeah, we had the
life
new
is
mayor
developing around it. Yes.
So in 2010 or 20, I don't know, whenever 2010 or 2011 ish, they got a new mayor who realized that, although Mesa is really pretty conservative in general, and they had all these kind of ridiculous laws that kind of kept, I guess, vice out of the town. Like
It was
they were like, you can't
semi-draconian.
have a place with liquor within 700 miles of a school, and so they put a whole bunch of schools in downtown. But the first place that kind of started kind of getting this trend back up was this Desert Eagle Brewery, where the guy who started it said, I actually talked to the mayor and it made getting permits a lot easier, and a lot of places started. I think they decided to be more friendly to attracting business because of the turnover, because people kept setting up shop and going, I guess I'm getting out of here.
Yeah.
And it was, and because people weren't coming, but people weren't coming because places weren't open. So I think it's starting to, and I think, I'm not to brag, I think we have a lot to do with bringing people downtown Mesa.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think
If the
the Idea
museum-
Museum and the Mesa Arts Center as well.
If you guys were not planted dead, like square in the center of all that stuff, it would have dried up and blown away. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not a person like me who was also into the weirdo aesthetics of like the old buildings and the history of everything, and you're not there just to take it all in, and you're actually looking for something to buy, it is horrible. But the museum there has done so much, like especially recently with the adding of the Acrocanthosaurus on the side. I realize that's not super new, but it's the highlight of my kid's day as soon as we go down there, right?
Yeah.
As soon as we get in that parking garage, he knows Dinosaur, and he runs his ass like and then he'll, this is another personal gripe. He keeps misidentifying the Dilophosaurus as a raptor, and I go, no! But he's young, so I let it slide.
Raptor!
You're not like, good.
Well, actually, it's a Dilophosaurus. Raptor!
Double crest! The Dilophosaur! Two crests! And he's like, I don't know. But,
He's going to end up with
He'll
some
learn quickly.
he's got time.
habit in the future, all because of you. You didn't tell him the right thing, and he'll be, my daddy never told me that it wasn't.
No, he knows. He'll know.
Yeah.
This guy is not going to let anything slide.
There'll just be a day where it'll be kind of like a Birds and the Bees day, except it'll be Dilophosaur day. And he'll
Here's
sit
the
down and
thing,
say,
kid.
I need
all right,
you,
The
me,
lobes
and
and the claws.
you're old enough now that I can tell you.
yeah, you, me, and him are going to sit down and I'm gonna say, "Son, it's time we have the talk." This is a paleontologist, and he's got some slides and some informative material that you need.
Oh man, we could probably get Dr. Adam Marsh, who actually, wrote the most recent monograph on Dilophosaurus. He looked at every
Really?
Dilophosaurus specimen there is, and just within the past, I feel like less than a year ago, just released a new monograph on updating.
So did they spit
Dilophosaurus
poison?
research.
Tell us for real.
Well, that turns out yes, they spit poison. So it turns out surprising. Everybody was shocked.
Can
They thought
confirm.
it didn't.
Poison glands found.
But yeah. But actually, he might be someone who would be good to get on the podcast because he works at Petrified Forest National Park. Well, part of his job is to actually do outreach types of things. He's given talks at for us at the museum, and he's actually very
They're
engaging
crazy
and
good at it up there
Yeah.
at the Petrified Forest. They have a huge education team.
You know, aside from being a sucker for dinosaurs, I'm a sucker for anything I can consider local. So the Dilophosaurus has
local
been
boy.
high up there, yeah.
Yep.
And you know that's the curse of being a dinosaur lover in Arizona. Is you really wish you were born in Montana or North Dakota or wherever, and you go here and you go, well, we've got shells up north. You can take as many as you want. All the clams you can fit in your bucket.
We have plesiosaurs.
Yeah, we have
We have
plesiosaurs.
mammals. We have really cool mammals.
We got some hadrosaurs. We got a lot of mammals. But that's the thing. Don't get me wrong. I understand people love their megatheriums and stuff. Taking a mammal like we've got today, you say, okay, you got a rhino, cool. Make it bigger and you put hair on it. You call it a woolly rhino. I go, it's a little cooler, but it's not a dinosaur. So sorry.
Well, I'm trying to do the gigantic camelops, which we don't have here, which is why I can't put it in the museum yet. But it's a 15-foot tall camel, and just think of the camel you have now, and just double it,
Yeah.
and how that is scarier to me than a dinosaur.
And it's so because of the subtlety, right?
Yeah,
A giant dinosaur or even a small dinosaur, you say, ugh.
but you know what a camel is, and you know what they are, and you know they're not the nicest thing.
No.
So when you think of that angry, spitting creature, and then make it taller than your house,
Well, surely
there's some fear to be stricken
Yeah.
in there.
surely
There's
you've
some
seen.
big stinking camels.
We do.
Well, look at there's
I want to
videos
put one on the mountain.
yeah.
giraffes trying to kill people. Like idiot tourists would be like, hey, and the giraffe will just want to stomp in the ground like a tent spike.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course a camel would not want to put up with that either. Like a camel the size of a giraffe, and you go,
They will
oh,
have less patience for
okay,
that.
let's. But
There was
I
a
realized.
musician I followed on her website who talked about a story where she and her friend went and visited a zoo in Australia where they had supposedly Australia's angriest giraffe.
Okay. Someone has to hold the title.
Yeah, and that's was like kind of the thing. Is like, come say the angriest giraffe in the world. Come to me. And she and her friend went there, and the guy who was showing them around, I guess, was kind of cocky, and we're going to go in the back here. And then they were like, are you sure? I thought this was angry. I mean, what's good? So apparently the giraffe, I'm going to see if I can find this link to you. He scalped the guy. Like, was like, I'm not having it. Picked up its hoof, whack. And part of the guy, whoop, part of his.
Yeah.
And even the guy was like, not even, he's like, that sucks. All right, I guess we're done here.
Well, yeah, the angriest giraffe in the world. What do you do?
Yeah.
So now there's been an article out. I'm sure you've seen it or maybe you haven't, but I'm still going to talk about it. How they're talking about, humans may have farmed quote unquote cassowaries.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause it was
That's
on-
been
it
in
was
the
on
news
the-
lately. Yeah.
Read it.
Horrible.
I would like to just admit, I take no issue
Lasted
with
for
it.
about 7 days.
Yeah.
Then people said, you know
if
what?
you change the word farming for desperately trying not to get kicked to death, then I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it would, like, chickens are a pain. Imagine having a chicken that's like as tall as you. It can eviscerate you and leave your
And
guts
wants
on the floor.
to possibly
Yeah.
do that too.
For eggs, you go easy on the omelets probably if you're having to worry about a giant. Like what
Exactly.
farming?
Yeah.
It's so funny too. If you use the word might, you can write an article about anything. Humans might have farmed giant terror birds. Sure, they also might have been nothing but cannon fodder for them. We don't know.
Yeah.
We saw an eggshell near a dead guy. We think we have a link.
Probably nested in his eviscerated body.
It's all warm and steamy and moist. Yeah.
They must have been best friends, and there's like a little baby castaway in the gut of a dead dude. And I go, yeah, see, they were raising.
cuddling. Yeah.
Can I commission you to make a sculpture of that scene?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll put it in the
Just
lobby.
a dude passed out, completely guts all over the place, just a happy little castaway sitting in the stomach. I'd be at that museum every day.
We tried to do a lot of blood and gore, and we keep getting told no. So
You got to start slow.
Yeah.
It's like showing a toilet on TV. You got to do it accidentally at first.
Just have like a room where it's like with a disclaimer.
Like a gore room.
Like a gore room. Yeah.
Yeah, there was
I mean,
we wanted the hadrosaur carcass that children could climb through. You know,
So
we're still planning.
people,
I
think
go.
sometimes think that it's the children who are disturbed by that kind of stuff.
No.
And I don't think it is. And I think
It's the adults who are disturbed on the account of the child.
Yes.
As in,
Right.
my child doesn't need this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I
Child
do,
doesn't understand what it is. So
sometimes when I do live feedings of animals, there's occasionally some gore. The Gila monster might rip apart the baby mouse.
Right.
The gar might rip open the thing that I'm feeding. And
It's nature,
the kids
though.
are like, yeah!
Right.
Yeah, and I think parents are like, kids don't want gore. And like,
It's an odd experience.
and I think everybody kind of does want it.
Right, you have to. Something in most people's heads, after you have a kid, something breaks or you forget, like you're wiped. And you tell your kid to do the exact opposite of everything you wanted to do. I have gone out of my way not to do that. So you'll never see me as like one of these people clutching a handkerchief to their chin is like something ghastly happens and like swoon onto a fainting couch. Like I'm as into it as all the other kids too, because why deny yourself the reality of the situation? I want a gore room. I want to crawl on my hands and knees through like a giant whale carcass as like a holographic megalodon floats above my head or whatever.
yeah.
All right, there we go. We've
That'd
got
be
like a
very cool.
completely vile, gory version of Meow Wolf now we've got to build
I
where
think
you
that would be
crawl
great,
in
Yeah.
through like an intestinal
We
tract
can do the
that's
silicone
bleeding
and the slimy.
Yeah, something squishy. And like maybe have like the, obviously you wouldn't do it to the nines, but like the facsimile of like a predator's mouth pushing on the outside of the thing you're crawling through.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh no, I'm scared.
very
Something like
Claws
that.
coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do people still do, no, maybe not Halloween parties now, but the people of your era and do Halloween parties where you have the close your eyes and put your hand in this and it's like a bowl
Ripley's
of spaghetti,
thing?
We never did that.
but it's like, oh, this is guts.
It's a very
Here's eyeballs.
age-specific window.
Is
We
that?
never did
Okay.
that.
Like if
You said you have?
no.
Oh, okay.
we did, but it was before junior high.
Oh, it was, yeah, I think it was for me between like second and fourth grade kind of.
First to sixth grade, yeah, I must have touched a country mile of brains and guts and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was one adult party I went to that had that, but it was a subversion of expectations. It was just the snacks that you had to eat. There was nothing goofy or spooky about it. It was just like, the Doritos, So, giant troll dandruff, and they all had the sort of schmaltzy names. But I digress.
Their first album was awesome.
Trolls?
Troll Dandruff. Their
Troll
first album was
Dandruff, yeah.
just the best.
Yeah, they kind of lost the thread. During when you focused on the dandruff and not the troll part, you want that sword and sorcery. You don't want the Selsun blue of it all. Oh, my angry, my troublesome T-zone. That album was a disaster. Anyway, let's talk about what is the new place called?
75 million
75.
BC.
I was going to say 77 or 70. Good thing I didn't say either. Would have been wrong. So 75 million BC.
Yes.
So how many square footage, how much real estate are we looking? It was huge. We walked through.
It is a 33 by 90 foot room.
Okay. So we've got, for a little spoilers for everybody who hasn't been yet or hasn't looked at the Facebook, and if you aren't, what? But so we've got the giant Tyrannosaur. We've got the Hadrosaur. I love that giant turtle.
He's my favorite thing in that room.
Oh,
Possibly the only Adocus, maybe
I actually
reconstruction.
had 2 people reach out. It got used in research papers.
Really?
It's
Or for a
incredible.
class, for like a presentation kind of thing.
Because
It's super cool.
it might be the only one ever.
Well, they Googled
created.
it. It was the first one that popped up.
Yeah.
So
It's cool because it's one of these things that, it's not a dinosaur, so maybe it wouldn't get as much attention as something paleo artists might do, or there might be no, because paleo artists are probably, if they're doing things on their own, they may be more dino oriented, unless they're actually getting paid to do something.
Yeah.
And probably
some
there's not
weird
a lot of people
who
going,
like
hey, can
the
you pay me
bryozoan
for
stuff? But
And then-
Bryozoans are cool.
they're neat.
And with paleo art too, not to digress again, but with paleo art, it's like half of a snapshot. Because in any paleo art, like let's say it's focused on a single species or a single individual, I get that. But we have these sweeping scapes. The mind reels at everything we're missing. All the insects, all the mammals, all the everything that fills all the niches. Because all we have is what we have, and it looks so anemic to me.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do?
Yeah, almost certainly, you're right. We can't fill in all the. One of the problems that the exhibits department had to deal with was they're like, what are the plants? What do we do for plants? And we just don't really know a heck of a lot.
Yeah.
We've got, okay, we know that generally there's these kinds of plants, but as far as making exact types, we kind of didn't really have much to give them.
Yeah,
We have what Hobby Lobby makes. So,
Yeah.
you can only do so much. Luckily they do pines and ferns, and all the fake plants today are from modern plants, and things like angiosperms and stuff just weren't around yet. So
Yeah,
no
and-
grass is the saddest part.
yeah. Paleobotany takes a lot of crap on this show, and it will probably never stop because
Your Camarasaurus relies on paleobotany.
I know. I
I'll have
realize
you know. He was not
paleo-
eating Twinkies.
Someone's gonna come fight you.
Yeah.
I understand paleobotany is wildly important because, well, within reason, because it shows you the building blocks of the bigger building blocks and all other stuff. But no matter how innately interesting, no matter how intrinsically fascinating, no matter how necessary it was to the ecosystem, could not care less.
Do you have pollen allergies? Is that it? Is that where we're...
I didn't want to bring it up, but when the Palo Verdes, when
Bias.
everything turns yellow out here, it is beautiful, but it is a nightmare for yours truly.
I wonder if they had ficuses.
I think we...
Like those big, fiddle leaf fig ficuses back in the dinosaur era. Those are awesome plants.
As an uneducated man's point of view, if you see something that's super rudimentary, it's probably been like that forever. If it's
Yeah.
too complicated, it's probably...
So people think cacti are really old plants. They're one of the newest types of plants on Earth.
it's
And so
wild.
you can't look at it and know, because a lot of the more rudimentary things are here because they've persisted
Yeah.
for so long, and some of them are here because it was just easy, so they popped up.
Yeah, cactus is one of those ones where it definitely fills a niche because not that anybody cares, but the saguaro especially, like growing up in Arizona, you get a lot of information fed to you about the saguaro. And so yeah, on the surface it does seem very like, oh, well, it's just a green thumb full of spikes. Yeah, no, it's wildly intricate. Like anything that has to survive in a desert looks like nothing, but is incredibly complicated because it has to find a way to live.
Yeah, the more complex it looks, it's probably been doing that for a long time.
But then you got those sleepers that are
spiky.
just, it's wild. Anyway, guys, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. I really appreciate it. Everybody who comes to me now comes to me for two things. One of them is dinosaurs, and the other one is to complain to me about the rest of my personality. So I'm glad we can get in and talk about the thing that everybody likes. So let's also, I want to push the museum. If you're here local, go to the museum, the Arizona Museum of Natural History. It's super fun. It's huge. It's mostly dinosaurs, but there's plenty of other stuff too. The mineral stuff I spend a lot of time in. They've got facsimiles of cave bacon, which I point out to every time because you cannot go near cave bacon and not say cave bacon.
Cave bacon.
All the indigenous people stuff, the pottery, all that stuff is wild upstairs. That gets short shrift from me because it's not dinosaurs, but it's still really cool. Also, the jail, scary. Still, I'm an adult. It's still scary.
I wish we could make use of that jail for some event night thing.
Yes, it needs it is crying for some kind of fancy dress party or
Murder
something.
mystery in the museum.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or like,
wow.
just
There we
get
go.
a rack of like Sheriff Joe black and white stripe and be like, yeah, that paid for with the ticket. All right, so now we're definitely going to wrap it up. So, guys, thanks for showing up. Go see the museum. Patronize. Oh, we should probably push that. This will definitely come out probably right before Beer and Bones Light.
Oh, okay.
So, if you're listening to this within the sound of my voice and you're within Arizona, Beer and Bones Light is still happening probably tomorrow as of when you're hearing this, if you're hearing it as of the release. So, check that out too. You'll probably catch me down there. So, guys, once again, thank you so much. This has been another episode of Everything Everywhere, and I still don't have a way to end this show, so keep it locked in until next time. Bye.
For this, try to.
Fistful of Podcasts Radio.